Rainy night. I ended the meeting early. My suit was soaked as I stood before the mansion. My phone screen lit up with a record from the lake. My wife Grace and my business partner Marcus had gone into the presidential together after dinner. I didn't storm in to confront them immediately. Instead, I calmly started a phone recording and pushed open the front door. The living room was brightly lit. Grace was sitting on the sofa watching TV. When she saw me, a flicker of panic crossed her face, but she quickly composed herself. "It back. What took you so long?" She stood up and took my coat. "You're soaked. Go take a hot shower." I smiled and took the hot tea she offered. "How was your dinner party today?" "Just so-so. A few old friends getting together. Quite boring." She sat down naturally beside me, leaning gently against me. In that moment, 7 years of marriage dissolved before my eyes. My heart remained calm as I looked at her delicate makeup, smelled a perfume on her that wasn't one I had bought, and listened to her weave clumsy lies. I pretended to know nothing, chatting about company matters. When she mentioned Marcus, her eyes flickered. I heard Marcus had a social engagement tonight too. I think so, I said casually. You know, he's always been well connected. Grace's lips twitched slightly. How's your latest project progressing? Very smoothly, I said calmly. We're just waiting to make our move. While washing up, I noticed distinct hickeys on her underwear. I took a photo, then calmly put it back where I found it. The next morning, Grace woke up early and prepared a lavish breakfast for me. She was wearing a nightgown, speaking softly, as if she hadn't been the one to betray me last night. Have you been tired lately? She poured me a cup of coffee. Why don't you take some time off, and we can go on a trip? I can't get away right now. I took a sip of coffee. Marcus and I are working on a big project. A strange look flashed in her eyes. You two have always had a good relationship, haven't you? Of course. I looked into her eyes. I consider him my own brother. I tell him all the company's secrets. He even knows my safe combination. Grace lowered her head, a smile I couldn't understand playing on her lips. I pretended to check my phone, but I was actually observing her. After 7 years of marriage, I thought I knew her every expression. Now I realized she had a face I had never seen before. Before I left the house, she proactively kissed my cheek. Come home early tonight. I'll cook your favorite dishes. I smiled and nodded, but as I turned away, the warmth in my eyes vanished instantly. In the office, I called in my assistant, Alex, checks phone records and whereabouts for the past 6 months. I handed him a debit card. Also, monitor my safe. Alex paused, then understood, Mr. Victor, how long do you need? As soon as possible. Well, if it's really true. I cut him off, a cold smirk on my face. I'll make them pay the price. In the afternoon, Marcus came to the company to report on work, behaving as usual, even mentioning the hardship of working until early morning last night. I watched him lie with a sincere expression, feeling nothing but sarcasm. 7 years ago, he introduced me to Grace. At that time, I had just successfully started my business, and he was just a junior employee under me. Grace was beautiful and generous, quickly winning me over. After we married, I gradually promoted Marcus until he became a partner in the company. Now, they had betrayed me. That night, when I came home, Grace had indeed prepared a table full of delicious dishes, and opened a bottle of red wine. Why so formal? I asked, raising an eyebrow. How long has it been since we had a proper meal together? She poured me wine. No matter how busy you are with work, you need to take care of yourself. Watching her feigned concern, I almost laughed out loud. After dinner, she suddenly suggested, honey, I'd like to visit the company. Can I come tomorrow? Why the sudden interest in visiting the company? I am just curious, she said coyly. You're so busy every day. I want to see where you work. I understood. She wanted to get close to my office, perhaps to find some documents. Of course, I pretended to agree readily. I'll have Marcus show you around. Hearing's name, a hint of tension flashed in her eyes, but she quickly concealed it. Marcus. Oh, all right. I guess I'll trouble him. Before bed, Grace uncharacteristically initiated intimacy. Her enthusiasm sickened me, but I perfectly maintained my role as the unsuspecting husband. In the darkness, listening to her steady breathing, I opened my eyes and looked at this woman I had once deeply loved. 7 years was enough for me to go from having nothing to being worth hundreds of millions. 7 years was also enough to push a betrayer into an abyss. Grace, you will soon understand the price of offending a businessman. Alex's investigation report came back sooner than expected. He placed a stack of documents on my desk, his expression grave. Mr. Victor, Grace and Marcus' relationship has lasted at least 6 months. I flipped through the photos, hotel surveillance, private messages, bank transfer records. The evidence was irrefutable. Each photo pierced my chest like a knife, yet my expression remained unmoving. What about the safe? Someone tried to open it last night, but failed. I sneered. I've already changed the combination. What do you plan to do? Alex asked cautiously. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze sweeping through the floor-to-ceiling windows to the city skyline in the distance. Don't say anything for now. I need them to keep up the act. At noon, Grace indeed came to the company. She was meticulously dressed in a red dress, drawing many employees' glances. Marcus personally received her, appearing professional, but their eye contact was unmistakably intimate. I took it all in, calmly planning every move. Honey, your company is so impressive. Grace linked her arm through mine, visiting various areas like a curious child. I am glad you like it. I held her hand and led her to my office. This is my domain. Her gaze quickly swept the room, pausing briefly on the safe, then moving on nonchalantly. Marcus. I turned to Marcus, who was following behind us. Please take Grace to see the other departments. I have a meeting. Marcus nodded, a hint of glee flashing in his eyes. I pretended to head to the conference room, but instead circled back to the monitoring room to observe their every move. Sure enough, after the tour, Grace found an excuse to return to my office, and, when no one was around, tried to open the safe. Watching her anxious demeanor, I sneered. What was she looking for? Confidential company documents, or proof of my assets? That evening, I proactively suggested taking her to a high-end restaurant to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Grace was visibly surprised, then feigned delight and accepted. You actually remembered. Her eyes shimmered with a light I couldn't decipher. I had forgotten. How could I forget? I gazed at her. 7 years. I haven't forgotten a single day. In the restaurant, candlelight illuminated her exquisite face. I poured her red wine and said softly, to our marriage. She smiled and raised her glass, but accidentally knocked over her wine glass, spilling red wine onto her dress. Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom to clean up. She stood up flustered. I nodded, and after she left, I immediately took out her phone. The password was still our wedding date. How ironic. I opened her messages. The latest one was from Marcus. Did you find it? I quickly replied, not yet. He changed the password. Putting down the phone, my heart was completely cold. What they were looking for must be the valuable project documents for the hundreds of millions worth of a project scheduled to be signed next month. When returned, we continued our phony anniversary celebration. She asked about the company's recent situation, and I deliberately leaked some false information. Speaking of which, Marcus has been performing exceptionally well lately, I said, as if casually. I plan to put him in charge of the 10U project entirely. A strange glint flashed in her eyes. Really? That's great. Yes, we're signing next Monday. You should come and attend. Okay, she readily agreed. I'll definitely be there to show my support. On the way home, she leaned on my shoulder and murmured, honey, you've been working too hard lately. It's for our future, right? I gently stroked her hair. As long as I can give you a better life, any hardship is worth it. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, if one day you lose everything, I won't leave you. I almost laughed aloud. Was she testing my attitude towards wealth, or was she looking for psychological comfort for what she was about to do? I hope that day never comes, I said faintly. That night, I made a decision. Rather than waiting for them to succeed, I would strike first. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting in my office, and announced the suspension of cooperation with 10U. But, Victor, a board member asked in surprise, we've been preparing this project for over 6 months. Why the sudden halt? We have an inside man. I coldly scanned everyone present, my gaze lingering on Marcus' face for a second. Someone plans to sell our trade secrets to a competitor. The conference room erupted in a commotion. Marcus' face instantly turned pale, but he quickly composed himself, feigning calmness as he asked, Do you have concrete evidence? It's under investigation. I looked at him, saying each word clearly, no matter who it is, I won't go easy on them. After the meeting, Marcus immediately called Grace. Through the listening devices, I clearly heard their panicked conversation. The plan has changed, Marcus whispered. Victor found out there's an inside man, and the Tengu project is on hold. What? Grace exclaimed. What do we do now? Don't panic. Keep looking for the original contract. As long as we get the information, we still have a chance. He's been so good to me. Lately, I am starting to having second thoughts. Marcus sneered. Don't forget our plan. Once we get the money, we can go wherever you want. At this, I turned off the listening devices. So that was it. They weren't just betraying me. They planned to abscond with my assets and flee. I sat quietly at my desk and dialed a number. Sarah, long time no see, care to grab a meal sometime? On the other end of the line, my college ex-girlfriend Sarah, now the legal director of Tengu, accepted in surprise. She was exactly the key person I needed. The pieces were in position. It was time to launch my counterattack. Sarah arrived 10 minutes before the appointed time. 7 years had passed, but she still had her neat short hair and capable demeanor. Seeing me, she flashed a familiar smile. Mr. Victor, long time no see. She deliberately emphasized my title, a playful glint in her eyes. We had been college sweethearts, but broke up after graduation due to differing ideals. She pursued an independent career, while I chose to start my own business. Now, seeing each other again, we had both achieved success. Don't be so formal. I motioned for the waiter to bring tea. Just call me Victor. Sarah chuckled, getting straight to the point. You suddenly called me, so it must be about something, right? I didn't hide anything, directly telling her about Marcus and Grace's betrayal, and their plan to steal trade secrets. So what do you need me to do? Sarah's expression turned serious after listening. I need Tengu to cooperate with me on a play, I explained, to make Marcus think he succeeded, when it's actually a trap. Sarah pondered for a moment, then suddenly smiled. You haven't changed. You still love playing the long game. I gave a wry smile. This time, I was forced into it. I understand. Sarah nodded. I'll talk to Mr. David at Tengu about this. He hates commercial espionage, so he'll definitely cooperate. Before leaving, Sarah hesitated, then said, Victor, I am sorry. I shouldn't have introduced you to Grace. It turned out Grace had been Sarah's junior at university. After and I broke up, it was she who set me up with Grace. It's not your fault. I shook my head. Hearts are hard to read. Back at the company, I pretended nothing had happened, even proactively inviting Marcus to lunch. I hear you've been looking for a house lately, I asked, feigning concern. Marcus visibly tensed. Yes, I am looking for a bigger one. Which area are you planning to move to? Haven't decided yet, he answered uncomfortably. I acted oblivious. If you need any help, just say so. By the way, I've reconsidered the Tengu project and decided to move forward with it. Marcus' eyes lit up. Really? That's great. Yes. Tomorrow I'll put the new contract in the safe. You can prepare the signing materials for me. That night, when I came home, Grace was exceptionally enthusiastic, offering to give me a massage. Her fingers glided over my shoulders, her voice soft as silk. How was work today? Not bad, I replied with my eyes closed. The project is back on track. Her fingers noticeably paused. Is that so? That's wonderful. Yes. I've already drafted the new contract. I'll put it in the safe tomorrow. Grace continued the massage as if nothing was wrong, but I could feel her breathing quicken. The next morning, I deliberately told Grace, I'll be working late tonight, probably very late. She nodded, a familiar glint in her eyes, the look she had when she had a plan. At the company, I followed the plan, placing a fake contract in the safe, then pretending to go to a meeting, but actually hiding in the adjacent monitoring room. As expected, around noon, Grace suddenly visited the company, claiming to bring me lunch. When the front desk informed me, I deliberately said I was in a meeting and had Marcus receive her on the monitor. Marcus led Grace into my office. After confirming they were alone, they quickly set to work. Grace pulled out a slip of paper and read a series of numbers, the fake combination I had deliberately leaked to her. The safe clicked open, and Marcus eagerly pulled out the fake contract. Both their faces broke into triumphant smiles. "We did it," Marcus said excitedly. "With this, we'll get the money." Grace looked around, lowering her voice. "Hurry. Don't let anyone find out." Marcus quickly photographed the contract content with his phone, then carefully placed it back, ensuring everything looked normal. I watched it all with cold eyes, already planning my next step. That afternoon, I received a message from Sarah. Yu had agreed to cooperate and was just waiting for Marcus to take the bait. At 10 that night, Alex sent me a surveillance screenshot. Marcus had indeed contacted our competitor, Baoyuan. "Mr. Victor, they are meeting tomorrow night at the lake," I replied. "Ready? Well, wait for them." It was almost midnight when I got home. The house was dark. I tiptoed into the bedroom and found Grace sound asleep. Her phone screen lit up with a message from Marcus. Everything went smoothly. "See you tomorrow night at 9. I silently turned off the screen and looked down at this woman I had once loved deeply. Her sleeping face was still beautiful, but it made me feel a sense of estrangement. 7 years of marriage would finally end tomorrow night, and was still in the dark, dreaming of getting rich. I quietly left the bedroom and sent a message to Sarah. "Action tomorrow night. Time to close the net." The next day, I deliberately appeared distracted, constantly checking my watch, pretending to have an important meeting. "I have to meet with the Yu people tonight about the project, so I might be back very late," I told Grace before leaving. She nodded, saying caringly, "Don't work too hard." But in her eyes, a glimmer of expectation I understood flashed. "Grace," I suddenly turned, looking at her seriously, "if one day, you found a better option, what would you do?" She was clearly stunned for a moment, then smiled, and hugged me. "What silly talk. I only want you for this lifetime." This clumsy lie was her last gift to me. At 4 p.m., I left the company early and went to the lake. Sarah and the representatives from Yu were already waiting in the suite, along with the lawyer and private investigator I had hired. "Is everything ready?" I asked. Sarah nodded. "The listening devices and cameras are in place. As long as they admit to attempting to steal trade secrets, the evidence will be sufficient." At 6 p.m., Grace sent a text message asking if I would be home for dinner. I replied that I was talking business, and she expressed understanding, even thoughtfully saying, "Don't work too hard." At 8:30 p.m., surveillance showed Marcus had arrived at the hotel, and was waiting in the lobby. At exactly 9 p.m., Grace appeared at the hotel entrance, clearly dressed up. Marcus greeted her. They embraced intimately, and then walked together toward the elevator. "They are coming up," the detective's voice came through my earpiece. "Targets have entered room 1712. I stood behind the hidden door of the adjacent room, 1713, clearly observing every move in the next room through the one-way glass. Marcus and Grace passionately kissed in the room. Then Marcus took out the fake contract he had stolen from my safe. Soon, a middle-aged man knocked and entered. It was Robert, the CEO of Baoyuan. "Did you bring the goods?" Robert asked directly. Marcus triumphantly handed over the documents, the complete Yu project contract, including all technical details and pricing strategies. Robert quickly scanned it, then nodded with satisfaction. "Good, as agreed. 10 million now, and another 10 million after the project succeeds." He handed over a debit card. "The password is your wedding anniversary." Grace took the card and exchanged a smile with Marcus. "One more question," Robert asked cautiously. "What about Victor? Won't he find out?" Marcus scoffed. "Him, a fool who only knows how to do business. He doesn't even know how long his wife has been cheating on him. By the time we get the money, we'll be long gone." Grace added, "Don't worry, the original contract is still in the safe. He won't find out. By the time you beat him to the project, we'll already be out of the country." "What about Lin?" Robert continued to ask. Marcus sneered. "It's best if it collapses. It has nothing to do with us anyway. The loser deserves to lose everything." At this, I decided to end the farce. Pressing the intercom, I quietly said, "Move." The door was suddenly kicked open. I rushed into the room with my lawyer, police, and reporters. At the same time, the Yu representatives also appeared from another room. "Good evening, everyone," I said coldly. "A brilliant performance. But it's time for the curtain to fall." The room instantly fell silent, the three of them pale as ghosts. Victor. Grace retreated in horror. "How are you here?" as an audience member for a good show. I smiled, looking around. My position is quite suitable, isn't it? Marcus tried to explain. Mr. Victor, this is a misunderstanding. We were just, shut up. I coldly cut him off. Every word you've spoken, every action you've taken, has been recorded. Robert realized he'd been tricked and angrily turned to Marcus. You tricked me. This is a trap. The police stepped forward and announced their arrest for suspected commercial espionage and attempted theft of trade secrets. The flashbulbs from the reporters were constant. This business scandal would be in the newspapers tomorrow. Grace finally reacted, stumbling toward me. Honey, please, this was a mistake. I was just used. I took a step back, avoiding her touch. My eyes only coldness. Grace, as of today, our marriage is over. She collapsed to her knees, crying, no, please, give me one more chance. I turned and left, leaving only one sentence. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. In the hallway, Sarah handed me a glass of water. Are you okay? Better than ever. I took the water but didn't drink it, just calmly looked out at the night view. Business is war. I won this battle, but I lost the person closest to me. However, compared to continuing to live in lies, this price was one I was willing to pay. The next day, the scandal involving Marcus, Grace, and Robert dominated the headlines of major financial media. Lin's stock price not only didn't fall but rose, while Baoyuan suffered a heavy blow, its stock plummeting. The commercial espionage charges were upheld, and the three would face prison time and huge fines. As for me, I started a new life, no betrayal, no lies, just my true self. The commercial espionage case shocked the entire business world. Baoyuan's stock plummeted, bringing it to the brink of bankruptcy, and Robert was forced to resign and face criminal prosecution. Lin, however, gained significant notoriety, not only earning industry respect, but also attracting numerous new clients. The project proceeded smoothly, bringing considerable profits, and opening the door to the international market for the company. During this time, I was busy with work, deliberately avoiding thoughts of Grace. The court had frozen all her assets, and she was prohibited from leaving the country, awaiting final judgment. A month later, the divorce proceedings were finalized. According to the prenuptial agreement, the unfaithful party had no right to asset division. Grace not only lost everything, but also faced a huge compensation payment. That afternoon, Sarah came to my office with unexpected news. Marcus confessed more details in prison. She said with a grave expression, the situation is more complicated than you imagined. I gestured for her to continue. Grace's approach to you wasn't accidental. Sarah handed me a document. She and Marcus had known each other for a long time, and were even lovers before you met her. This news struck me like thunder. 7 years of marriage had been a meticulously designed deception. Why would they do this? I suppressed my anger, but my voice still trembled. Sarah sighed. For your company, Marcus had always been jealous of your success, and he orchestrated all of this. He had Grace approach you with the goal of slowly draining Lin. I gave a bitter laugh. So I wasn't just cheated on, I nearly had my entire company stolen. Sarah nodded. They were very patient, waiting 7 years to make their move. This explained why Grace never interfered with my work, but always encouraged me to promote Marcus. She wasn't uninterested in my career, she was waiting for the opportune moment. Victor, there's something else. Sarah hesitated. Grace wants to see you. She says she has something important to tell you. I sneered. What else is there to say? She says, she's pregnant. This news froze me instantly. A child. Was it mine, or Marcus? After a long silence, I finally said, arrange it, I'll go see her. Grace was held in the detention center, awaiting her formal trial. In the visiting room, she looked much thinner, her eyes red and swollen, clearly having endured much suffering. Seeing me, she immediately burst into tears. Victor, thank you for coming, get to the point. I interrupted her. Sarah said you're pregnant. She nodded, hesitating to speak. Whose child is it? I asked coldly. Grace lowered her head. I don't know, I could barely control my emotions. 7 years. Grace, what did 7 years of marriage mean to you? A game? An investment? No. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. At first, it was a plan to approach you, but later, I truly fell in love with you. I scoffed. So your way of loving me was to sleep with another man, and then plan to take everything from me. I was wrong, she cried. I was controlled by Marcus. He threatened me with my parents' situation. Spare me. I stood up. I'll see you in court. Leaving the detention center, I sat in my car for a long time, recalling this absurd marriage. Every sweet memory, every intimate exchange, was now shrouded in a false shadow. My phone rang. It was Alex. Mr. Victor, there's a new development in the investigation. His voice was excited. We found evidence that Marcus not only seduced Grace, but also embezzled company funds. Over the past 3 years, he transferred at least 30 million. Continue the investigation, I said calmly. Don't miss any clues. After hanging up, I drove towards the company. On the way, I received a call from an unknown number. Is this Mr. Victor? A female voice asked. I am Jessica, Grace's former roommate. There are some things I think you should know. I immediately changed direction, heading to the small cafe address she provided. Jessica was a capable woman. She directly laid out a stack of photos and chat records. These are early interactions between Grace and Marcus, she explained. From college days, I silently flipped through the sickening evidence. Some photos were even taken before I met Grace. Why are you telling me now? I looked up and asked. Jessica sighed. I just got back from overseas, and saw the news. Grace used to be my best friend, but she chose the wrong path. Do you know why she did it? I think it was for money, Jessica replied. Her family was very poor, and Marcus promised to give her a wealthy life. Ironically, if Grace had just told me about her difficulties, I would have helped her without hesitation, but she chose deception and betrayal. Also, Jessica added, Grace has been very conflicted these past few months. I guess she might have genuinely developed feelings for you, but it was too late. This information gave me no comfort. Regardless of whether Grace eventually wavered, her betrayal was already a fact. Leaving the cafe, I received a call from Sarah. Victor, Grace she attempted suicide. My phone dropped to the ground, and the world seemed to stand still for a moment. In the hospital corridor, the smell of disinfectant was pungent. I stood outside the emergency room, my thoughts in turmoil. Sarah rushed over, handing me a coffee. She's fine, out of danger now. The doctor said the baby was saved too. I nodded silently, unsure how to react. I no longer felt love for Grace, but I couldn't say I hated her, either. 7 years of entanglement were not so easily severed. She left a suicide note. Sarah hesitated, taking out an envelope. It's for you. I took the envelope but didn't open it immediately. The court has agreed to medical parole, Sarah continued, considering her physical condition and the fetus. Take care of her, I said, turning to leave. I'll pay the medical bills. Aren't you going to see her? I stopped, shook my head. No need. Back in the empty mansion, I finally opened the suicide note. Victor, by the time you read this letter, I should be gone. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I just want to tell you the truth. Yes, I initially approached you with a purpose. Marcus found me and said that if I could become your wife, I would receive a generous reward. At that time, I was destitute. My parents were seriously ill, and I desperately needed money, so I agreed. But as time went on, I truly fell in love with you. Your kindness, intelligence, and care for me were things I had never experienced. I wanted to tell you the truth countless times, but I was afraid of losing you. The pregnancy was an accident, but I am certain the child is yours. My relationship with Marcus only resumed 6 months ago. He threatened to expose my past, and I had no choice. I know these explanations are meaningless. I hurt you, betrayed your trust, and I deserve what I get. I am sorry, Victor. I hope that in your future days, you can meet someone truly worthy of your lifelong trust. Grace. There were clear tear stains on the paper. I read it several times, my emotions complex. If the letter was true, Grace had been genuinely in love with me, for at least half the time. But what did that change? The next day, I received a notice from the court. Grace was willing to become a state's witness, providing more criminal evidence against Marcus. In exchange, she might receive a reduced sentence. Meanwhile, the company investigation revealed that Marcus had not only orchestrated the plot to steal the 10U project, but had also repeatedly leaked trade secrets to competitors over the past few years, causing huge losses for Lin. That scoundrel is even more despicable than we imagined, Alex said angrily. He even manipulated financial statements to cover up his embezzlement. I calmly gave instructions. thoroughly investigate all projects and funds he handled, don't miss a single penny, at the same time, strengthen internal company management to prevent similar incidents from happening again. A week later, Marcus faced multiple additional charges, including embezzlement, falsifying documents, and commercial fraud. He would face a longer prison sentence and higher compensation. Grace's health gradually improved. I learned that she was actively cooperating with the investigation, providing a large amount of valuable information. She's truly remorseful, Sarah told me during a dinner. The doctor said she has nightmares almost every night and wakes up crying. I remained non-committal. People always have to pay the price for their choices. What about the child? Sarah asked cautiously. If it's really yours. I remained silent for a long time. First, let's do a paternity test. 2 days later, the test results came back. The child was indeed mine. This news plunged me into deeper conflict. I hated Grace's betrayal, but I couldn't ignore an innocent life. After careful consideration, I made a decision. Grace would not have the right to raise the child, but I would take on my responsibility as a father. I conveyed this decision through my lawyer. Grace did not object, only requesting to see the child before serving her prison sentence. As the case deepened, more dark secrets were uncovered. Marcus' criminal network was far larger than imagined, implicating multiple companies and individuals. Grace was just a pawn, and while guilty, she was also a victim. Considering her remorse and contribution to the case's investigation, the court ultimately sentenced Grace to 3 years in prison, suspended for 5 years, with the additional condition that she could never approach Lin or its employees. On the day the verdict was delivered, I stood alone outside the courthouse, watching Grace from a distance. Surrounded by media, she was haggard and silent, her gaze searching for something in the crowd. When she saw me, a complex light flashed in her eyes, both regret and relief. She nodded slightly, as if saying goodbye, then turned and left. In that moment, I suddenly understood that no matter what the future held, our marriage had truly ended. There were no winners, only lessons and scars, and I, carrying these scars, would move forward, rebuilding the trust that had been shattered by deception and betrayal, facing a new life. 6 months later, Lin completed its internal restructuring, shed the shadow of the Marcus incident, and achieved new record high performance. The project progressed smoothly, not only bringing considerable profits but also opening the door to the international market for the company. That afternoon, I was in my office reviewing quarterly financial statements, when Alex knocked and entered. Mr. Victor, there's some news you might want to know, he said, his expression complex. Grace gave birth. It's a boy. I put down my documents, a ripple in my heart. Although I had been prepared, the news of my own flesh and blood arriving still touched me. How's his health? Mother and son are both fine. The child is already being cared for by professional nurses, as you arranged. Grace, she hopes to see you. I was silent for a moment. Make the arrangements. The next day, I went to the hospital. Grace was sitting on the hospital bed, an infant in the bassinet cradled in her arms. She looked surprised and joyful when she saw me. You really came, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you. I walked closer to the bed, and looked at his tiny, wrinkled face. He was sleeping peacefully, his tiny hands tightly clenched, oblivious to the world. He's very healthy, Grace whispered. The doctors say all his indicators are good. I reached out and carefully touched the child's cheek. An unprecedented feeling surged within me. This was my child, my own flesh and blood. No matter what had happened in the past, this new life was innocent. Have you thought about a name for him? Grace asked hesitantly. Leo, I replied without hesitation, hoping he would be as bright and pure as the morning light. Grace nodded, tears in her eyes. That's a wonderful name, Victor. I want to thank you for still being willing, after everything. I am doing this for the child. I interrupted her, my voice calm. Not for you. She looked disheartened, but quickly composed herself. I understand. I'll respect your decision, and give up my parental rights according to the agreement. But, could you allow me to see him occasionally? I hesitated. I had been pondering this question for the past few months. Depriving a mother of the right to see her child felt cruel, but allowing a betrayer to be involved in the child's upbringing was dangerous. I'll consider it, I finally said, but on certain conditions. Any conditions are fine, she replied eagerly. First, you must not mention our past to the child. Second, a person I designate must be present at every meeting. Third, if you engage in any behavior detrimental to the child, this right will be immediately terminated. Grace nodded without hesitation. I promise you, I just want to see him grow up. As I left the hospital, I looked back at Grace holding the child. She lowered her head and kissed Leo's forehead, her eyes filled with the glow of maternal love. In that moment, I almost believed she was truly remorseful. Back at the company, I announced a week's leave. After making work arrangements, I drove to the mansion on the outskirts. This was the new home I had prepared for Leo, far from the city's hustle and bustle, in a beautiful and peaceful environment. The caregivers had already arrived, and were tidying up the nursery. I carefully checked every detail to ensure everything was safe and comfortable. Mr. Victor, the caregiver asked, when will the child arrive? In 3 days, I replied. A doctor will accompany him to ensure everything goes smoothly. Just then, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Sarah, carrying an exquisite gift box. I heard the little one is coming, so I brought some presents. She smiled as she walked in. Since the Grace incident, Sarah and my relationship had gradually regained its former closeness. She not only supported me in my career, but also became an important friend in my life. What are you thinking? Sarah asked directly. Are you planning to raise the child by yourself? I nodded. I owe him a complete family. Sarah was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, if you need any help, just let me know anytime. These simple words warmed my heart. Throughout the dark years, Sarah had always stood by my side, offering support and understanding. Thank you, I said sincerely. You've already helped me so much. She smiled and looked around. This place is nice, but it's too quiet. It's suitable for a child, but not so much for you. He'll be coming back to the city often. I explained. The company still needs me. Sarah nodded, saying nothing more. We had dinner together, discussing the company and the future of the industry. Imperceptibly, the conversation shifted to a more personal level. By the way, do you know how Marcus is doing lately? I asked. Sarah's expression grew serious. He attempted suicide in prison but was discovered in time. They say his mental state is very poor. He keeps saying someone is trying to kill him. I scoffed. He brought it upon himself. Sarah hesitated, then added, there's something else that might concern you. Baoyuan has gone into bankruptcy liquidation. Robert confessed in prison that he was instructed to approach Marcus in the first place. Who instructed him? I frowned. It's not clear yet, but the police suspect it's related to one of your past business rivals. This news made me fall into deep thought. If that were true, the entire incident might be far more complex than I imagined. Weren't Grace merely pawns in a larger conspiracy? Whoever it is, I said calmly, if they dared to target my company and my family, they would pay the price. Sarah looked at me worriedly. Victor, the path of revenge has no end. Sometimes, letting go of the past is the only way to truly move forward. I knew she was right, but the wounds in my heart hadn't fully healed. Grace's betrayal, Marcus' conspiracy, these were not simple business rivalries. They struck at my most vulnerable points, trust and love. I'll be careful, I finally said, but if anyone tries to harm my child, I won't hesitate to act. Sarah fell silent, understanding my determination. As night deepened, she rose to leave, pausing at the doorway. Victor, no matter what happens, remember you're not alone. Her words echoed in the silent night, offering me a flicker of warmth and strength. 3 days later, Leo officially moved into his new home. Looking at his sleeping face, I made a decision. For this child, I was willing to let go of past grievances and start anew, but fate seemed to have other plans. That same evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Victor, a hoarse male voice said, Grace and Marcus were just the beginning, the game has just started. After that mysterious call, I immediately strengthened the mansion's security measures, and simultaneously sent people to protect Grace. No matter what had happened, she was still Leo's mother, and if anything happened to her, it would be irreparable harm to the child. Alex was in charge of investigating the call but found nothing. The number was disposable and untraceable. The other party is very professional, Alex reported. They are likely professionals hired by a business rival. I pondered for a moment. Have there been any unusual situations recently? Stock fluctuations. Loss of important clients. There is one thing. Alex hesitated. Marcus' lawyer suddenly filed for a retrial, claiming new evidence proving he was framed. This news made me wary. Marcus' case had solid evidence, there was almost no chance of overturning it, unless someone was manipulating things behind the scenes. Keep a close eye on this development, I instructed, and at the same time, investigate internally to see if there are any remaining factions loyal to Marcus. In the following days, I was spread thin. I was taking care of Leo, handling company affairs, and simultaneously guarding against unknown threats. A week later, Sarah brought unexpected news. Marcus was killed in prison, she said with a grave expression. The prison guards found him long after he had died. When did this happen? I asked, shocked. Last night. Preliminary investigations indicate it was done by his cellmate, but the specific motive is unclear. I remained silent. Marcus' death was too suspicious, occurring precisely after he applied for a retrial. Had he learned something he shouldn't have, or had he become a scapegoat for some larger conspiracy? That night, I received another mysterious call. One pawn has been removed, the same hoarse voice said. Who's next is up to you. Who are you? I suppressed my anger. What do you want? The other party chuckled. You'll know soon enough. Mr. Victor, look at the people around you. Some faces might not be as loyal as you imagine. After the call ended, I couldn't calm down for a long time. The caller's words were profound, seemingly hinting at an inside traitor. But who would betray me? Alex, Sarah, or someone else? I decided to take the initiative. The next day, I convened an emergency high-level meeting and announced a false major decision. The company would undergo a large-scale reorganization, involving core business adjustments and executive changes. This information is to remain confidential for now, I said gravely. Any leak will be considered a betrayal of the company. After the meeting, I secretly installed surveillance equipment to monitor the calls and emails of several key executives. If there was an insider, they would surely pass on this bombshell news. 3 days later, the surveillance yielded results. Thomas, the CFO, contacted a mysterious individual on the very night of the meeting, revealing the meeting's content. Even more shocking, he mentioned my personal life, including Leo's existence. Apprehend him, I ordered Alex, but don't alert anyone else. I want to question him personally. Thomas was secretly taken to a safe house. Faced with my interrogation, he initially denied everything, but quickly broke down in the face of irrefutable evidence. It was Mr. Edward, he stammered. Edward promised me a huge reward if I regularly provided internal company information. Edward, my old rival, a former business partner, who had fallen out with me after a failed collaboration. 5 years ago, his company went bankrupt, and he disappeared without a trace. I never expected him to be secretly orchestrating all of this. Now was also his doing. I asked coldly. Thomas nodded. Mr. Edward orchestrated the entire plan, including having Grace approach you. He hated you. He wanted to completely ruin you. This astonishing truth made my scalp tingle. My marriage with Grace, was it a conspiracy against me from the very beginning? So, her feelings for me, those warm memories, were all fake. Where is Edward? I pressed. I don't know. Thomas shook his head. He never shows his face. He only communicates through intermediaries. I paused in thought for a moment, then suddenly asked, was that mysterious call also from him? Thomas looked puzzled. What call? It seemed he didn't know all the inside information. I decided to try a different approach. If you want to reduce your sentence, I said, looking straight into his eyes, help me contact Edward, tell him I know everything, and am willing to meet face to face. Thomas hesitated for a moment, then finally nodded in agreement. 2 days later, I received a reply. Edward agreed to meet, the location being an abandoned factory on the outskirts. This is likely a trap, Alex said worriedly. You can't go. I have to go, I replied firmly. This game needs to end. For safety, we made thorough preparations. Alex led an elite security team to lie in wait around the area, and also alerted the police. I, meanwhile, wore a miniature recording device, ready to record the conversation at any time. On the agreed-upon night, I drove alone to the abandoned factory. The factory area was pitch black, with only moonlight illuminating the mottled walls and rusty machinery. Edward, I walked into the empty workshop, my voice echoing in the vast space. Come out, the game is over. After a moment of silence, footsteps echoed from a dark corner. A familiar yet strange figure emerged. Edward, my former business partner, now gaunt and haggard, yet with eyes still burning with hatred. "Victor," he sneered, "you really have the guts to come alone. Why?" I asked directly, "Why did you do this? Our grievances shouldn't involve the innocent." Edward burst out laughing. "Innocent? Who are you calling innocent? 5 years ago, who withdrew their investment at the critical moment, leading to my bankruptcy? Who spread rumors, leaving me no footing in the business world? Who broke up my family, and ruined everything I had?" I remained silent. The business collaboration 5 years ago certainly ran into problems, but things were far less severe than he claimed. I withdrew my investment because I discovered his financial fraud, not out of malice. "So," I said calmly, "you arranged for Grace to approach me, all for revenge?" "Initially, yes," Edward admitted, "but the plan later changed. Grace genuinely fell in love with you and became hesitant. I had no choice but to activate a backup plan, using Marcus to regain control over her." This truth sent a jolt through me. Grace's suicide note had been true. She truly did love me at some point. What about Marcus' death? Was that also your doing? Edward sneered. He became uncontrollable. He knew too much. He had to be eliminated. "What do you truly want?" I stared into his eyes. "I want you to taste what it's like to lose everything," he said with a sinister grin. "Family, career, reputation, everything, just like you did to me back then." "Enough," I sharply interrupted him. "Let's end all of this tonight. The police are already outside, and all your crimes have been recorded. Surrender." "Edward," he froze for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Do you think you can catch me like this? How naive." With that, he suddenly pulled a handgun from his jacket and aimed it at me. Just at that critical moment, a gunshot rang out, but it wasn't from Edward's gun. He was shot in the shoulder, and the handgun fell to the ground. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Sarah. She held a gun in her hand, her expression cold and resolute. "Sarah." I looked at her in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I've been following you," she explained. "Knowing you'd take a risk." Edward clutched his bleeding shoulder, glaring at us venomously. "Do you think this is over? How naive. I've already arranged everything. Even if I am caught, the revenge plan will continue." No sooner had he spoken than police sirens and footsteps sounded outside the factory. The police and Alex's team rushed in simultaneously and apprehended Edward. "Mr. Victor, are you all right?" Alex asked worriedly. I shook my head, indicating I was unharmed. Edward continued to laugh maniacally and threaten me as the police took him away, but this time, I knew he could no longer harm me or my family. After the case was solved, the truth gradually came to light. Edward had indeed orchestrated everything, including arranging for Grace to approach me, using Marcus as a tool to control her, and even attempting to steal company secrets through Thomas. Even more shockingly, he had also planned to kidnap Leo, using my own flesh and blood as leverage to force me to sign a series of unfair agreements, ultimately leading to the downfall of Lynn's group. Knowing all this, I went to see Grace again. She had moved out of the hospital and was renting a modest apartment. "I heard about Edward," she said with a complex expression as she opened the door to me. "So everything was orchestrated by him?" I nodded. "Including your reunion with Marcus." She gave a bitter smile. "I knew it. Marcus suddenly became so assertive back then. Someone must have been supporting him from behind the scenes. Why did you agree to Edward's plan in the first place?" I couldn't help but ask. Grace was silent for a moment before replying softly. "My father owed Edward a large sum of money and couldn't repay it. He threatened to kill my father unless I agreed to help him." I said nothing more. What was past was past. Pursuing blame was meaningless. The important thing was that we had all survived this conspiracy and had a chance to start anew. "How is Leo?" she asked cautiously. "He's doing great," I said, taking out my phone and showing her pictures of the child. "He's already smiling." Looking at her son's pictures, tears welled up in Grace's eyes. I knew that no matter what had happened, her love for the child was genuine. "Do you still hate me?" she suddenly asked. I was silent for a long time before replying. "No, not anymore, but once trust is broken, it's difficult to rebuild." She nodded, understanding. "Thank you for telling me the truth, and thank you for allowing me the chance to see the child." As I left, I handed her a debit card. "For the child's sake, take care of yourself." Leaving's apartment, I drove back to the mansion on the outskirts. Sarah was waiting for me there, gently humming to Leo in her arms. Seeing this scene, a wave of warmth spread through my heart. After so much turmoil, peace had finally arrived. How did it go? Sarah asked softly. It's over. I walked over and gently stroked Leo's cheek. All the grievances, they should end now. Sarah smiled, looking at me and the child. A new beginning. I nodded. A new beginning. Winter passed and spring arrived. Leo was now 8 months old, starting to babble and say his first words, including Papa. Whenever he did, I felt an unprecedented sense of happiness and contentment. Lin's group had completely emerged from the shadows, with performance repeatedly reaching new highs. Edward's trial had also concluded, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple charges, including masterminding commercial conspiracies, incitement to murder, and attempted kidnapping. During this time, Sarah often came to the mansion to help care for Leo. Our relationship had also subtly grown closer. Have you ever thought, one evening, after the child fell asleep, Sarah suddenly asked me, about forming a complete family again? I was silent for a moment. Are you saying? Sarah smiled. Yes, I am saying us. Leo needs a mother, and you need a partner too, don't you? I looked into her sincere eyes, and a wave of warmth surged through my heart. After experiencing betrayal and deception, I once thought I would never believe in love again, but she had always been there, whether as a friend or an ally, never disappointing me. I need time, I said honestly, but I am willing to try. Sarah nodded understandingly. I'll wait. Meanwhile, Grace was also working hard to rebuild her life. She came to see Leo once a week, always bringing handmade toys or clothes. We maintained a polite but distant relationship for the child's well-being. One day, as Grace was about to leave, she looked at me as if she had something more to say. Is something wrong? I asked. I want to tell you something. She took a deep breath. I've decided to move abroad. I have a distant relative in New, who is willing to help me start over. This news surprised me a little. What about Leo? I'll keep in touch via video calls regularly, she said with a bitter smile. But I think leaving might be best for everyone. You and Sarah, I can see a good match. I didn't deny it, just nodded. When will you leave? Next month, she replied. Before then, can I see Leo more often? Of course, whenever you wish. After seeing Grace off, I sat in the yard, gazing at the myriad stars, my mind swirling with thoughts. Life's turns were always so dramatic, love turning into hate transforming into understanding, and past wounds becoming future strength. The next day, good news arrived from the company. The project won an international award, which meant Lin's group would gain more recognition and opportunities in overseas markets. At the celebration banquet, I raised my glass and gave a speech. Thank you all for your hard work, and thank you to life for every challenge it has given us. It is these challenges that have made us stronger. Sarah stood by, smiling and applauding for me. Her eyes were full of pride and affection, warming my heart. After the banquet, we walked together through the city in the night. Neon lights illuminated her profile, making her look breathtakingly beautiful. Victor, she suddenly stopped, and looked at me seriously. I know is still hesitant, but I want to tell you that whatever decision you make, I will understand. I took her hand. Sarah, thank you for your unwavering support and understanding. Without you, I might not have survived this storm. That's because I never stopped loving you, she said, looking straight into my eyes, even during the years we were apart. Those words touched the softest part of my heart. I embraced her, and under the streetlights, we shared a tender kiss. On the way home, I had already made up my mind. Life had given me a second chance, and I wouldn't miss it again. The next morning, I asked Alex to arrange a special trip to a picturesque island destination. Bring and Leo, I instructed, and an important small box. Alex showed an understanding smile. Understood. Mr. Victor, when do we leave? Next week, after Grace's last visit with Leo. A week later, Grace arrived as planned, bidding farewell to Leo with a reluctant expression. When he's older, I'll come back to see him, she said softly to me. If you allow it. I nodded. You will always be his mother. That will not change. She looked at me gratefully, then turned and left. I knew this wasn't goodbye forever, but it was certainly a significant turning point. We were all looking forward, beginning a new chapter. The next day, the three of us embarked on the journey to the island. Sunlight, sandy beaches, and clear blue skies formed a perfect picture. On the beach, illuminated by the setting sun, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Sarah. She gasped in surprise, her eyes filled with tears, and nodded without hesitation. Leo clapped his hands nearby, giggling as if he too was blessing us. After returning to the country, we held a simple yet heartwarming wedding, inviting only our closest friends and family. Alex, acting as the best man, was so nervous he didn't know what to do, which made everyone burst into laughter. I never would have thought, he said in his speech, that a business elite like Mr. Victor would have such a tender side. Congratulations to you both. After the wedding, we decided to move back to the city, closer to the company, and also for Leo's future schooling. Sarah resigned from Tengu and joined Lin's group as vice, becoming my perfect partner in both business and life. One day, I received a postcard from New. It was in Grace's handwriting. New life is good. Wishing you happiness. Please kiss Leo for me. Looking at the postcard, I felt a peaceful sense of relief. The past wounds had healed, leaving behind only experience and lessons that taught us to cherish the present and protect true love. Sarah hugged me from behind. What are you thinking about? I turned and embraced her. I am thinking, how lucky we are to have found each other after everything we've been through. She smiled and kissed me. It's not luck, it's our choice. Even in the darkest moments, we chose to believe in love and hope. Leo toddled over, holding out his tiny hands for us to pick him up. Together, we lifted him high, our three laughs intertwining in the sunlight. In that moment, I finally understood. True happiness isn't the absence of storms, but the ability to still believe in the sun after weathering them. And for a businessman, the greatest success isn't the accumulation of wealth, but knowing how to protect and cherish what truly matters: family, love, and trust. This lesson was worth remembering for a lifetime. 3 years later, Lin's group had grown into an industry giant, holding a significant position in both domestic and international markets. Sarah and my marriage was happy and fulfilling, and Leo had grown into a lively, intelligent little boy. That day was Leo's 4th birthday. We hosted a lively party at the mansion, inviting his friends and our relatives, the banners waving in the yard, and laughter filled the air. Sarah had carefully prepared a huge birthday cake, and Leo, amidst everyone's well wishes, closed his eyes to make a wish, then blew out all the candles in one breath. Papa, Mama, he said excitedly, I made a wish. I hope we can be together forever. Sarah gently hugged him. Honey, that wish will surely come true. I looked at the scene before me, my heart filled with gratitude. Over the years, Sarah had not only been my wife and partner but had also become a wonderful mother to Leo. Her love for the child was no less than that of a biological mother. After the party ended, as we were tidying up, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found an unfamiliar woman holding an exquisite gift box. Hello, Mr. Victor, she said politely. This is a birthday present from Ms. Grace, sent through me for Leo. I took the gift box, a little surprised. Grace. Is she back in the country? The woman shook her head. Grace is still in New. She entrusted me to deliver this gift. She said she wanted to contribute a small token of her affection for her son's birthday. After seeing the woman off, I opened the gift box. Inside was a handcrafted wooden photo frame, enclosing a family photo, taken 3 years ago, when we vacationed on the island, when Leo had just learned to walk. Engraved on the back of the frame was a small inscription, Happy to my little angel, Mom will always love you. Sarah walked over, her expression complex after seeing the gift. Do you remember her? I asked softly. Sarah nodded. Of course, I remember. She is Leo's biological mother. That will never change. I hugged Sarah. Thank you for your understanding and generosity. She leaned on my shoulder. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is how we grow from them. Grace has already paid the price for her mistakes, and she has the right to express her love for her son. That evening, when Leo saw the special gift, he asked curiously, Papa, who sent this? Sarah and I exchanged a glance, then I knelt down to look into my son's eyes. This is, from someone else who loves you very much. When you're a little older, I'll tell you her story. Leo seemed to accept the explanation, and happily placed the photo frame on his nightstand. That night, after the child had fallen asleep, I received an email from New. I opened it to find it was from Grace. Victor, I hope this email finds you, and Leo well. My life in New is gradually getting back on track. I've opened a small Chinese restaurant, and business is quite good. A few days ago, I received the photos you sent. I am truly happy to see Leo growing so quickly, and looking so healthy. Thank you and Sarah for giving him such a wonderful family environment. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but if possible, could you tell Leo that he has another mother who loves him from afar? Of course, this entirely depends on your decision. I will respect whatever result you choose. Wishing your family happiness and well-being, Grace. After reading the email, I fell into deep thought. Should I let Leo know the truth? He was too young to understand such a complex family dynamic, but as he grew older, he would eventually ask about his biological mother. Sarah walked over and saw the email's content. What do you think? I asked her. She pondered for a moment. I believe the child has a right to know the truth, but it should be told to him at the appropriate time, and in the appropriate manner. Aren't you worried? I couldn't help but ask, worried that he might. Sarah smiled and shook her head. Leo is very smart. He'll be able to understand that love comes in many forms. Regardless, I believe our love is strong enough to help him face anything. I gratefully held her hand. You are always so wise and strong. After much consideration, I replied to Grace's email, stating that, when Leo reached an appropriate age, we would tell him about her, and welcomed her to maintain contact with the child via video calls or other means. The next day, the company held a board meeting to discuss a major decision, whether to acquire a bankrupt enterprise, specifically, the remaining parts of the former Baoyuan. From a business perspective, this is a good opportunity, Alex analyzed. The price is low, their technological reserves are abundant, and the market potential is significant. I looked at the expectant faces in the conference room, and suddenly realized that past grievances no longer mattered. What mattered was looking forward and seizing future opportunities. Agree to the acquisition. I made the decision, but on one condition: retain the existing employees and give them a chance to start anew. The board members were somewhat surprised by this decision, but all expressed their support. After the meeting, Alex asked curiously, Mr. Victor, why do you want to keep those people? They were once rivals. I smiled. Precisely because of that. They'll better understand the meaning of failure and rebirth. Everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Leo had grown into an adult, with Grace and Sarah standing beside him. The three of them were living harmoniously, their smiles radiant. In the dream, I felt an unprecedented sense of peace and contentment. Upon waking, I gently stroked Sarah's sleeping face, my heart filled with gratitude. Life had given me many lessons, and many gifts. The most precious gift was the love and trust of the woman before me. Weeks later, we received a letter from Grace, accompanied by a video. In the video, she stood in front of her small cafe, introducing us to her new life. The cafe was named Leo's Homestyle, and specialized in authentic Chinese home-style dishes. I want Leo to know that his name is spoken daily, bringing beauty and warmth to people, she said at the end of the video, just as he brought it to me. After watching the video, Sarah said softly, "She's changed a lot." I nodded. We've all changed. Sometimes, scars are a necessary path to growth. That evening, Sarah and I took Leo to the park for a walk. The sun was setting, casting golden light upon the three of us. Leo ran ahead, happily chasing butterflies. "Papa, Mama, come look," he exclaimed excitedly, pointing at a butterfly resting on a flower. We walked over and crouched beside him. "Butterflies also have stories," I said softly. "They go through difficult transformations before they can spread their wings and fly high." Leo looked at me curiously. "Just like people."